Arthur, to be followed by Alexander Stewart. Mr. Arthur, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I wish to begin by thanking Annabel Ewing and recognising what was an excellent speech that brilliantly and in a very measured way, which can be challenging in debates like this, summarised the salient points. And I also want to recognise the outstanding contribution of EU nationals in my constituency of Renfrewshire South, EU nationals in Barrhead, Neilston, Uplemure, in Johnston, Elderslie, Linwood, Brookfield, Kilbarcan, Howwood, Lochwinnock, to those who volunteer in our third sector in Renfrewshire South, to those who work for Renfrewshire Council and East Renfrewshire Council, to those who work in our businesses and in our hospitality sector, to those in every area of our life, to our friends and our neighbours in Renfrewshire South. I want to recognise the EU nationals who work in this Parliament and make such an outstanding contribution. I want to recognise the contribution that all EU nationals across Scotland make. And I also want to make a point, because I'm not speaking about someone different from, say, an EU national, because I am an EU national. I am an EU citizen, and I am proud to be an EU citizen. And I will fight to my dying breath to ensure that we maintain our EU citizenship, and that one day we will see an independent Scotland as a full member of the European Union, where we are all European citizens. Because, Presiding Officer, European citizenship is not some abstract, it's not some legalism. It was born out of the ashes of two calamities that befell the continent in the first half of the 20th century. The wisdom in EU citizenship, the wisdom in that shared identity, came at the expense of the blood of countless millions of men and women and children across the continent. And if we forget that, if we allow ourselves to lapse into a rather numb, unthinking, bureaucratic state of mind, then that is a very dangerous place to get to, because it allows the insidious creep of intolerance, of the othering that Annabel spoke about. And I have to say, Presiding Officer, I so deeply regret that we are in this position today, where we are having to debate this. But first and foremost, we must recognise the contribution that our EU friends, our brothers, our sisters, our neighbours, our co-workers, our families make to this country in enriching us. It was one of Europe's great authors, Marcel Proust, who said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeing new landscapes, but in having new eyes." Well, within Europe, we do see new landscapes. We have the opportunity through freedom of movement to travel, but through mixing, through engaging, through that cultural exchange, we enhance ourselves, we develop ourselves, and we also see with new eyes. We become better people. Our EU citizenship enhances us, and that is the great gift that the European Union, that freedom of movement, and the ability for all EU citizens to live anywhere in this continent has bestowed upon us. But there's something fundamentally different in a state of mind when you visit a country and go through passport control and know you have a mere 3 months where you can stay and you're a visitor. It's a fundamentally different state of mind for anyone in Scotland who can go to Paris, to Krakow, to Athens, to Madrid, to Lisbon, to any European capital, to any European city, and know they don't have the right just to visit, but to settle there, to live there, to work there. There becomes a sense of collective ownership and responsibility that binds our people together on this continent, that realises the vision of the founders of the European Union, which was to ensure that never again would this continent go to war. And when we start to unpick that tapestry that we have wove, that rich and ennobling tapestry that we have woven over the past 60 years, then we risk further down the line another catastrophe befalling our continent. And the reality is, a very practical reality for Scotland is, without EU nationals, we will not be able to build the fairer, more prosperous, more equal country that we all seek. We know the challenges facing Scottish public finances as a consequence of the demographics. The reality is that while within Scotland our working age population is just as productive as the working age population, indeed more so than many other parts of the UK, our population overall is ageing. And without that freedom of movement, without sending that message to citizens in Europe and indeed to across the world that they are welcome, we will not be able to build that better Scotland. So I want to conclude by thanking Annabel Ewing for bringing forward this motion, for thanking all those who signed it, and to say that we will continue to fight for our fellow EU citizens and to ensure that their citizenship is restored in full as members of an independent Scotland within the European Union.
Thank you, Mr Arthur.